What's going on, everybody? Welcome into this playoff edition of the Breakdown. It's been a little while with scheduling and everything else kind of being difficult with, well, life. So appreciate you bearing with me, but what I want to do is take a look at a couple things that I liked from Game 1, some things that I definitely didn't like in Game 2, and then reframe it around what I think is going to be the deciding factor ultimately in this series, and that's Jusuf Nurkic and what they do or they don't get out of him. As I was going through a lot of the film, the thing that I kept noticing was what the Nuggets were doing with him or what Jusuf Nurkic wasn't doing at certain times that either made the Blazers successful or unsuccessful. Certain stages of the game, particularly early in both games, we're going to highlight here. But where he got the ball, when he got the ball, and what he was able to do with it ultimately felt like a deciding factor outside of the good shooting that Portland has had and relatively poor defense. We're not going to focus too much on those two things because honestly, I think both those things are going to hold pretty consistent. Portland could have a bad luck shooting night. They're going to consistently play pretty poor defensively. I think they can raise their ceiling a little bit as long as Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor, but I'm just not counting on it. That's just the reality. Denver has shown that they can find ways to exploit them a little bit here or there, even shorthanded. And really, I've said this a couple times now, Denver's bad game, their Game 1, they scored 109 points. It's not like Portland has done anything to really slow them down in that regard. They made Jokic work a little bit harder in Game 1, 14 of 27 as opposed to 15 of 20 in Game 2. I'm not going to focus again on defensive adjustments. Again, this is more geared towards Portland, how they get into sets, what sets they're looking at. Jusuf Nurkic's involvement, where they get him involved in the floor, and really just things that kind of popped off the tape to me as the more I dove into it outside of the battle between Damian Lillard and Nikola Jokic. So let's get into it. I'm going to do this in a compliment sandwich style. Game 1 had obviously some higher highs. I thought the energy, the execution, the level of basketball that Portland came out, even though they weren't hitting everything to start, I liked what they were doing. I thought they came in with a really good game plan. They executed really well. They just a little maybe anxious to start the game. But what I want to really focus on here is just a couple things that they got into. We'll just kind of dive into the clip here right out of the gate. Getting Jusuf Nurkic involved early on is a big deal. As you see here, catching him above, you get a little bit of a brush screen, tuck-in move here for CJ McCollum. That's a little bit of a decoy action as we roll things forward here a little bit. Get through, get to the DHO, 1-5. Jokic, as you can tell, dropped underneath Jusuf Nurkic. Facu, I specifically said he dies here because, well, he dies on the Jusuf Nurkic screen. Particularly, watch how this advances here as Dame turns the corner. Well, look at the options. Again, you're going to see the highlight here popping up a little bit. Pocket pass leads to a 3-on-2. With Jokic trailing away, creating that space, we'll roll that back here a little bit. You can see that pocket pass that when we're looking at a clip in Game 2, that this is an adjustment that Denver makes eventually, coming up to the level and not bringing Facu over the top to trail quite as much because, well, he's 5'8". He's not going to do a damn thing as a trail defender anyways, so why not try to blow up the action to begin with? But we'll get to that when we get to that. So again, 1-5 DHO, Nurk catches here, and honestly, you're playing the most ridiculous 3-on-2 you can imagine. You're really not worried about Jusuf Nurkic here in the sense of making the right decision. He could go to either one of these corner shooters and he can make it happen. But you know what else he can do? He can sidestep it all and just finish at the rim. That's a good play for Jusuf Nurkic. I'll stop it right there real quick. It's a good play for Jusuf Nurkic because it gets him a cheap and easy one. As you can tell on the clock there, 9:50 early in the game. Nice and easy. And the one thing that I've always maintained about Jusuf Nurkic, when he's going towards the rim, good things happen. All right, let's roll a little bit further into the game. It's a little bit of an action here that I think Portland really should go to more. Some early staggers, whether it's a little brush screen, trail screen, staggered screen, early in sets. And one thing you'll notice with difference between Game 1 and Game 2, I thought Portland was a lot more effective about getting into their sets a couple seconds earlier. Even though they're not a high-tempo team, just get into things a little bit quicker. Be a little bit more affirmative in your actions. Here you'll see CJ McCollum get a little bit of a chip. And that little gap that you get there allows Jusuf Nurkic to get up here and makes Jokic have to make a decision early. He's not able to get to the level under control. So as we get up here, you get that 1-5. Again, Facu is just going to die on Jusuf Nurkic. And there's nothing he can do here. There's a massive human being against a little child. And Jokic is stuck at the three-point line. He cannot get to the level. He can't blitz. He can't trap. He can't come up and hedge in any way, shape, matter, form. So as we get this forward, again, look at the space created. And again, this is something I really want to make sure we hammer home. Jusuf Nurkic in game one had about 15 touches within the elbow and into the paint, 15 or 16, depending on how you want to score it, where he was effectively getting the ball on the move and working in positions with space. Game two, that was cut in half. And yes, he did foul out in this or less minutes, but he was getting most of those touches early on, then not so much in the middle, and then again in the fourth quarter, which we'll kind of highlight here in a second. But it's very effective. Again, playing Michael Porter Jr., not really too worried about it. Gordon, not bad coming over to help, but at this point in time, this is where Jusuf Nurkic really starts to shine. Go ahead and play this one forward. Hello, Norman Powell. Makes an appearance here, and the best corner three-point shooter in the league knocks down the corner three. All right, let's get into this play here to kind of wrap up the first part of game one. We're going to go with a 5-2 DHO. We're going to empty the corner ball side. So if you look behind CJ McCollum in that corner, there is nothing there. This is also another thing I think Portland should take a look at doing more consistently. There's no help. There's no one to rotate. You can't stick somebody else in there and hope to God that you figure this out. There's also a bit of an issue here because there's been a transition switch and you've got Gordon on McCollum. So as we roll this forward here, Gordon is trailing. We're going to go ahead and roll that back forward. Gordon is trailing. The wonders of technology. And the big thing here is, as Nurk has turned that corner, Jokic has already stepped up, and the help defender is, again, 5'8", 5'9", Facu Campazzo. You're not worried about this. I kind of wish CJ would have given Nurk the ball here so he could have, murdered Facu. It would have been highly entertaining as we watch it roll through here. But CJ's able to get even and just go full Deion Sanders or that's a terrible reference. It's not Deion Sanders. I can't remember who it was. It was hand up Michael Irvin. If I'm even, I'm leaving. Good. I'm getting my Cowboys mixed up. Joe would be disappointed. But again, even, leaving, boom, turn the corner, finish. And those are the actions that I really, really enjoyed seeing from the Trailblazers in game one and what they were able to do effectively in getting Jusuf Nurkic on the move in positions where he can be really successful, getting other guys involved, getting himself involved, and getting Denver's defense on the move early and often. Well, if you're going to have the compliment sandwich, your game one, that's the good stuff, right? Everything kind of came together. Obviously, Portland gets the win, but they look good doing it. Game two, certainly you want the win, but they looked really, not good. Outside of Damian Lillard just turning into a human flamethrower, you didn't get much out of Jusuf Nurkic. He didn't catch the ball in spots that you typically want him to. Counter to what we saw in game one, Denver brought a couple changes. They put Nurkic in places that made him less effective, but also Jusuf Nurkic didn't work nearly as hard. It was one of those things where it just seemed like he was off kilter, off rhythm, not where he needed to be. The Blazers didn't work for each other nearly as much as they did in game one, and you could see that kind of show up on the tape. And what I mean by that is it's pretty evident once you just start looking at it. Let's go ahead and take a look again. Early on, we get the 1-4 pick and roll with Damian Lillard and Robert Covington, which I think the Blazers should do a lot more of, especially if they're going to hide Michael Porter Jr. there. The Blazers, they should matchup hunt mercilessly going forward. That should be what if they can get Facu, go at Facu. If they can get Michael Porter Jr., go at Michael Porter Jr. Those are the guys that you want to go at. Put Jokic in as many actions as you can, not necessarily because he's a poor defender, but get him away from the rim and make him move. He's in incredibly good shape, especially for a big, but tire him out. Make the legs a little more jiggly as the game goes on. But back to the matchups here. I had somebody in Denver tell me the other day that getting Aaron Gordon on Damian Lillard, that's about as good as they're going to get probably. They're not going to go to it all the time. They can't go to it all the time. It'll put them in a weird situation in cross matches. But they do like the length and athleticism that he offers. That being the difference to Campazzo, who he also called a human ball rack for Damian Lillard. So 5'8", 5'9", not offering a contest. Dame can get to wherever he wants. He can step into any shots. It's not good. I mean, it's basically a snuff film. So you look at what the Blazers should be doing in Game 3. Use this tape here as the template for, if you start seeing this stuff, maybe start to worry a little bit. So as we kind of roll this forward, Dame's going to get the switch with MPJ, and you're thinking, oh, great, awesome. What are you going to do with it? Well, they repick it, and I'm not sure why. So you get Nurk here. They reset it at 35. You get the 1-5 pick and roll. Your help's going to stay in the corner, strong side. You've got Norman Powell deep in the corner if you wanted to get weird with it. But as you can see here, Jokic is pretty high. Michael Porter Jr., pretty poor angles. Right now, I'd like to see Dame do something more with it here, but this is maybe where you see length paying off. Porter Jr. is 6'10", so maybe Dame isn't looking to try to thread that to Nurk and going downhill. Nurk doesn't do him really any favors by, well, really getting after it all, and so Dame just kind of gives it up. And as you see, the defense kind of settle back in here, and I'm not sure what the initial look here is, but CJ was like, you know what? It's my time. It's 8 seconds on the clock. I'm going to try to make something happen here. Well, he does. He makes a turnover happen. Something that was all too common. The Blazers definitely need to figure that out. They're a team that takes care of the ball. They need close to 100 possessions. At 91 is their average on the season. 73 is not going to get it done. They will lose that game every single time unless they turn into the Detroit Pistons of 04. That's it. They don't have the defensive utility to play a game with that few possessions. So moving forward, all right, so we get a little 2-5 ball screen. There's no advantage here, really. Kind of a weak pick, soft roll. You don't get a ton out of this. It looks like they're just trying to get into a set. You get Nurk here, who we've seen him do it, and we're going to see a little bit more when we talk about the good back end of the compliment sandwich here. Let me go ahead and roll this text forward. Denver's loaded ball side. They've got 5 guys from the bottom free throw line up. And you've got Damian Lillard butt naked in the corner. We're going to see a little bit different version of this play set coming up here, going into a DHO. So Nurk could have looked into this corner and gotten it to him. So there's your one. Now, the thing that I think was more evident in this game than in game 1 is getting Norman Powell involved. The timing isn't right. They're looking him off at times. I don't know if it's purposefully. It's just he's not in the flow, in the rhythm. They can't seem to get CJ and Norm on the same page at the same time, getting both going, and that's just a kind of a pecking order and feeling each other out still. But one of the things I think the Blazers need to do is get Norm the ball coming off DHOs, coming out of the corner, coming downhill, and put him in these situations. The problem is he made a poor choice here. As we roll the tape forward, you're going to see Norm turn the corner, and whoop! Guess who's still butt naked in the corner with his hands up? Damian Lamont Ollie Lillard. Ta-da! Instead, we're going to try to challenge the 7-footer. Now, Norm is a tremendous finisher, but here's to take a look at a slight different variation of that same set that we saw coming off the DHO. This is basically one of Portland's thumb sets that they run a ton of different variations off of. So we'll get it here, a little 1-5 flare screen, boom, flip it back into the DHO. Nurk, hello, sir. And again, these are not poor defenders here. This is Alex Caruso, who, yes, is a good defender. Anthony Davis and LeBron James is your backside help on the weak side. You're going to see Dame come off this DHO with a head of steam, same as Norman Powell, except this time it's Carmelo Anthony in the corner. And as he draws that defense, you've got the empty corner with Jusuf Nurkic. So on that roll, Anthony Davis has got to figure out if he's going to find Jusuf Nurkic on the backside. Dame's not really a lob threat. Anthony Davis can probably take that away, but LeBron's not entirely sure, so he has to hold tight for that split second. Boop! Corner pass, Carmelo Anthony, cash money 3. That's just a little contrast play to show what it can and effectively looks like when everybody's operating on the same page, and that's why I want to get Norman Powell involved, because you kind of saw it was one of those situations where maybe he hadn't touched the ball on a few possessions, not even got a shot or a drive, but touched the ball. So you want to keep that just kind of humming around a little bit. We're going to kind of wrap up a little bit of game 2 here, early action. You're going to get this 1-5 pick and roll at 40 feet, which I like the Blazers are mixing up their levels because forces Denver to change where they're going to pick Damian Lillard up at. However, there's a slight adjustment here by Denver, and we talked about this in the game one stuff, is that as we roll this forward, Facu is going to drop off. And look at this empty space here. Dame, if he wanted, could turn this to the left, attack that sideline, which, to be fair, Denver did a very, very good job of thwarting any action to the sideline. They wanted to turn him back away and force that pass to come back to above the break, top middle. That was the only, they weren't allowing anything in the corner. But this is one of those opportunities where early on in the game when they were struggling mightily, Dame turning the corner here and being aggressive would have been a big difference. Instead, you get Facu up to the level, Jokic up to the level, Nurkic doing what he needs to do here and drop off, but Dame, I'll be honest, it's a lazy pass. He's had a couple of these lately, and it turns into a quick and easy turnover, and Denver's outgoing the other way. And if you look at all of the different situations that we saw early on, it was poor play, poor execution, walking through things. I don't know what was going on. It's hard to anticipate the nightlife in Denver being that much of a problem, especially during a COVID season. But those things popped up quite a bit early on in that game. It put Portland behind. And again, this could have been a game that Portland lost by 30 plus, if not for an obscene, disgusting first half effort from Damian Lillard, who hits 32 points and 8 3-pointers. We're going to go ahead and wrap this part of it up and go back to the good side, and particularly what we saw from Jusuf Nurkic closing out game one and what I'm hoping to see going into game three. All right, it's the backside of that compliment sandwich, and it's closing time. You ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here. So we're going to take a look at Jusuf Nurkic and his ability to help close the game in game one and really turn the tide. It's going to be a couple different plays, and it's more about the actions and what Portland is doing as opposed to the generated result, as you're going to see here on the first play. As we roll this one forward, I actually really like what they did here. You're going to get that 1-5 ball screen at 40 feet. You're going to see some of the, obviously this is from game one. Game two, Jokic came a little bit higher and helped defeat this, but he's playing underneath here. So I think it's very much incumbent upon Portland to identify where guys are at, particularly in their pick and roll coverages. As we roll it forward, you're going to get a good screen, and you're going to get that separation. There's that pocket pass right there. Nobody's up to that free throw line extended. You've got Anthony Simons coming out of the corner. You got another shooter in the corner. Jusuf Nurkic has 3 different things he can do here. He can show for the pass. He can pick for the pin down on Anthony Simons, or he could go a hard dive on the roll. Well, what ends up happening here? Well, you get a quick little show. No ball pressure as Nurk catches it. The defense has had to vacate there to come up for Anthony Simons. There's no pin down, although, I mean, the way Ant was shooting the ball, there was definitely an option there. But what I love here is you get the overplay by Facu Campazzo. Dame hits him with a quick little stutter jab. Boop! And that window just right there. What's frustrating here is Dame completely smokes the layup. But again, great action, just simple, fine minutia, little adjustments, being able to read the coverage and being on key, on pace, and on the right time. And I think that was, this again, credit to Denver for being able to disrupt that in game two. How Portland is able to counter that in game three, I think, is going to be one of the more telling storylines. All right, this is just literally the next possession. Jusuf Nurkic has just contested I call it a lazy Jokic three, but this is back-to-back-to-back great Nurk plays. So you get an empty corner elbow catch here to Jusuf Nurkic, and you get a slight little screen from Carmelo Anthony for Damian Lillard. And it starts a couple different actions. And this is, again, talking about what I liked from game one, the action before the action leading to the next action. As we allow this to roll forward, boop, take a look here. Denver's looking for that UCLA cut. It's right there for Dame. Whoop, right down the middle. Nurk could hit him right on time. You see Denver start to overplay ever so slightly. As it rolls forward, you're going to see a couple different things happen. It looks like it's going to be a staggered screen set. You're going to get CJ coming up above the break. Dame is going to pick CJ's man. Melo flips his hips and catches Aaron Gordon slipping. This is a fantastic read by both Carmelo Anthony and Jusuf Nurkic. Pinpoint precision passing, and one. Aaron Gordon caught slipping ever so slightly by, well, I mean, let's be honest here, folks. Carmelo Anthony doesn't have the legs necessary to really do that too often. So it's just one of those, tip your cap to Carmelo Anthony. Fantastic read. Great pass from Jusuf Nurkic. And that's the kind of thing when you're talking about getting him involved, being in the right place at the right time, and utilizing him not just as a scorer. As you took a look at this video in general, it was not about Jusuf Nurkic, the scorer. He did have that one layup, but it was working as a screener, as a roller, as a facilitator, as a big body, making those secondary reads and making it easier on his teammates, making it harder on Denver. And that's really what I'm looking forward to see what those adjustments look like going into Game 3. Thank you guys for checking out the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'll have a couple more, hopefully, as this series goes on or as Portland moves into the second round, maybe. But again, please like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff so I can keep churning out this content for the rest of the season, as I hope to do more in the summer. Again, thank you for your time, and we'll check back in next time. Bye.